Joined by retired four-star general and Fox News senior strategic analyst Jack Keane. Welcome, General. Good to see you. So my view of this exchange, General, putting my cards on the table, is that the big winner here was Vladimir Putin. This wasn't good for Zelensky or Ukraine or the president. What do you think?
No, I think that's indisputable. Putin, from the very outset during the Biden administration, was trying to do everything he could, certainly to separate Zelensky from the United States and also from European support. And that is really what he's about strategically. He wants to break the transatlantic alliance and separate the United States from our European allies. So you're absolutely right in that sense. But a couple things on this. I mean, it's unprecedented, certainly, to have this kind of grievances and frustration done in front of the media. There was a meeting prior to this where the press was not at it. I'm not sure how long it took because it was cordial, but this meeting was anything but cordial. And the reality is many of the grievances that existed were displayed in front of the media. So I was wondering what was really going on in that prior meeting. Trump and his team do not like Zelensky. That's well known.
Right.
And Zelensky's got two fundamental disagreements from a policy perspective going forward with the president. One, he wants the president to be his partner going into negotiations with Russia. So he favors Ukraine in those negotiations. President Trump takes a different stand, believes strongly in personal diplomacy. He sees himself in negotiations as a mediator between Zelensky and Ukraine and Putin and Russia, and try to facilitate a deal as a mediator, and he's willing to promote his adversary, Putin. And Trump knows full well he's a thug and a killer, a manipulator, and he obviously invaded Ukraine. But he wants to promote him to enhance the relationship so we can get a compromise. Zelensky resents that. The second thing is Zelensky, and it's talked about a lot, wants guarantees of security from a future attack by Putin after a deal has taken place, because that's what Putin has done in the past. He'll break the deal, and Zelensky is concerned about that. Trump's thought on that is that, we can get that after the deal is done, and that's not hard to do. And interesting enough, Paul, in this session, just about 20 minutes prior to the blow-up, Trump mentions that the British and the French are going to provide peacekeepers after the deal is done,
right,
and it's conceivably that we could. What an opening in that meeting there, and for Zelensky should have jumped in on that and certainly enforced that. But it went by, and that's a complete departure from all previous statements President Trump has said about U.S. troops after a deal has been made. The second thing, and I really think this is the thing that started to blow up, Zelensky absolutely believes that when you go to a ceasefire, you got to have, prior to that, some guarantees that there's going to be security. And certainly Trump, as I mentioned, believes it's after. And what actually happened here is Zelensky, in responding to a question that Trump had already answered, began to lecture the president on ceasefires. He said there's been 25 ceasefires that Putin has violated. He's actually violated one when you were president. The president said, no. And Zelensky said yes in 2016. At that point, Trump stopped looking at Zelensky talking and began looking at the ground. And Zelensky kept going on saying we cannot go into a ceasefire. In other words, Zelensky is not going to accept a ceasefire that Trump has negotiated with Putin unless there are guarantees of security in his future. And I'm saying to myself, after having gone back and watched this thing 2 more times, is what is Zelensky thinking? He's in a meeting with Trump and his staff, and the media is attending it, and he is rejecting a successful ceasefire that Trump would negotiate with Putin. And he's lecturing the president about it on top of all of that. I think that is what stimulated, at some point, some 20 minutes later, Vance to intervene on the president's behalf because he felt he was being insulted. And then Zelensky, again, as opposed to deflecting Vance and just moving on, he began to debate him.
Okay.
And it went downhill from then,
All right.
and the president began to defend Vance.
But what happens next? I mean, can this thing be repaired, and how can it be repaired, the relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine, whether Zelensky's there or not?
Yeah, well, I tried last night by talking to Zelensky's chief of staff. I mean, they want to sign the deal, but I said, it's impossible to sign the deal if you don't reconcile with the president. You've got to get your president to talk to President Trump. I mean, it's just common sense here, guys. And what did they do? They took off for London last night. And I think the Europeans are likely telling him publicly they're supporting him in the fiasco with President Trump in the White House. But I think privately they're telling him, you got to reconcile here. The deal, the mineral deal, is step one in negotiations going forward. Zelensky wants to sign it, but he's going to have to make peace with President Trump as a result of what took place in that Oval Office. And the sooner he gets around to doing that, the better. If he doesn't do it, and he continues to be stubborn on this issue, I think we have major, major challenges going forward here. Yeah. And we're not going to get a peace agreement.
All right, General Jack Keane, thanks for joining us.